You know what I could really go for right now? Literally anything that comes in a McDonald's carton, wrapper, or bag. Or a McDonald's cup. Yes, any of those items should do it.
We've got your cravings covered. Now stop in for the flaky Filet-O-Fish, the crispy snack wrap, or large fries for just $2.99. Limited time only. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Drew McIntyre here from WWE. Wielding the Claymore can be a life of chaos. When I'm not dominating in the ring, Chumba Casino is how this warrior takes a wee break. With hundreds of online social games and new weekly releases, there's always something fresh to try. And those daily boosts, next level. Even my free time feels like Valhalla. So when life feels like a battle, kick up your feet, have some fun, and let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T's and C's. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
He's an old head.
Youngins are really starting to get on my damn nerves.
He's a purveyor of nonsense.
Your fault.
He's a Georgia high school coaching job influencer. His favorite Bible verse is, Jesus wept. He's the man of constant sorrow, Chris Lamb.
Yeah.
Hey, this is episode 5 of Son Coaches Podcast, and today we have got the one, the only, the incomparable Kevin W. Stevenson. W stands for won him a state championship a couple of weeks ago. I've known Kevin for 24 years. We met at the GACA clinic 24 years ago and have been best friends ever since. I couldn't be more proud for somebody to have finally got him one. 98% of the stories that I tell people that I've been involved with, my alter ego that shows up at clinics and out-of-town dates, was created with this guy. I hope you enjoy our guest today, Coach Stevenson. Glad to have you on, my guy.
Yeah, man, it's an honor to come on here and, be able to speak a little bit and talk about, the world of coaching. And what a lot of people don't understand is they just see the final product on Fridays. They don't see all the behind-the-scenes stuff that coaches do and, dealing with parents, administrators, and just the camaraderie that you have with other coaches, throughout the state and get to know people. And, just I go back and think about from year one of people that I met there and the relationships that I gained there to where I am now. I'll see somebody and say, oh man, I remember you used to work for so-and-so and all that stuff like that. So I think coaching is a full circle. It all comes around and, it comes back together. But man, I tell you what, it's been good to me. And like I said, we were fortunate enough to win a state championship this year. And it was even more special that, my son, he plays on the team. He's the kicker. And so I don't know who was more nervous, me or him, when he was doing the kicking in the state championship game. And he had a chance to win it. And they did a good job of getting penetration and blocking it. But then I'm just sitting there thinking in the back of my mind, like, buddy, you better make every one of them extra points in overtime was. It's going to be over with. Yeah. Whereas I may be looking for another job. But anyway, he did good. He's a year older. And, last year he panicked a little bit. We got an overtime game last year against Dooley, and he missed some field goals and whatnot. But he's been good this year. I'm proud of him. He's worked hard and. He's kicked a lot of them in the end zone this year. He's getting better at that. We need to get him next year where he can kick them all in the end zone and whatnot. But, that's a year older. He'll get better. So, my man, I'm just absolutely proud. People do not understand winning a state championship, all the things that goes into it. It's everything's got to line up. You got to have good administration. You got to have good coaching staff. You got to have players that's going to do what you tell them to do. You got to have great community that stands behind you. And I've been at a lot of places, and here at Pierce, it's just like it was just different. The parents, what they did for our kids, and the things we ask of our kids, they do everything we ask them to do. We got a good staff that works together. You know, Coach Aaron I fully enjoy working for him this year. And he is a heck of a daggone football coach. And, you know, and I've worked for some good ones, and he does a good job. And I'm very blessed to be here and being able to work with him. And it's just, you sit down and you have to pinch yourself like, man, did you really win that thing? You know, can I wake up? Did it really occur? And it goes by fast too. So I've been out of town a little bit. I've been on what I've called my state championship vacation tour. I went out to California to go see my sister, and then I went down to Fernandina Beach for a little bit, enjoyed my time there. And man, I met some guys down there from up there around Gainesville, Georgia, and oh my gosh, he had some really good stories. He had some great Mike Bobo stories. And I said, yeah, I got a good one too from, one time when we were with Bobo at the clinic one time. He was identified as a tennis player. So, but
yeah, I remember that.
But anyway, I told him that story, and he got to laugh, and he's like, man, he said that was great. But man, we go back to work tomorrow, and so it's been real, wow, man, you go everywhere here in town, and people say, man, good job, coach, and whatnot. But it takes effort from everybody, and people just don't understand that. We as coaches, we talk about jobs that come open in places to coach at and stuff like that. You get some of these coaches, they go, oh man, I can win there. It's a little bit more than having good athletes to win games. You got to have a whole variety of things that go into it to win it.
Well, I know when you first started, you started with the legendary Buddy Sorrow at East Lawrence.
Oh man, look here. Buddy Sorrow, if you can survive coaching with Buddy Sorrow, you are going to be a good season coach. His motto was work hard, play harder. And that's what we did. We worked hard. We enjoyed one another, working with each other. And, you just, you gotta, it was my first, varsity coaching job, my first year coaching. I went to the clinic with him, and that's where me and you met each other. You was over in Worth, and we watched the sun come up talking about football and stuff like that. Just being around those guys, and I was fortunate to be around some guys that had been coaching for a while. Like John Peacock and Bob Griffith and Milt Miller. I did my student teaching in Lowndes County, and had a chance to meet Milt, down there, and I did some student teaching at Hayhire, and just being around those guys, Milt helped me get my first job at East Lawrence because he worked with Buddy a long time ago at, in Appleton County when Griff was the head coach there. So it's just, man, it's just working with him. I learned a lot of stuff, and he was very simple, he was a too-tight wishbone guy, and you wasn't going to practice no longer than 2 hours, and you get later in the year, an hour and a half. And so we was at camp one time, and Buddy goes out there, and we're down in Cuthbert, Georgia. If anybody knows where Cuthbert, Georgia is, it's in the middle of nowhere. They got a big old water tower in the middle of the road. So when you pull up, you have to either go right or you go left. And there's people sitting all around the water tower there. And so we was over at Andrew College, and so my first trip, we went down there, and Buddy said, we taking our weights. I mean, we loaded up our weight room and took it with us. I've never seen that before.
That's the old school right there, baby.
Oh, man, we practiced 4 days, 4 times a day. You know, we got up early in the morning at 6 o'clock practice. Then we ate breakfast, and then we had special teams practice, and then we lifted weights in the afternoon. We practiced at night. My favorite practice was the night practice because I felt like we got a lot of stuff done. That morning practice was okay. The worst one was the midday practice. I hated that practice. It was terrible. It was hot, and kids were miserable. I was miserable. Everybody was miserable. But anyway, we sitting down there on the dummies, and the guy for Lovejoy was sitting there, and he said, "Yeah, we got to go get our guys. I got to get the computers. We got to do our practice schedule." But he said, "Heck, want me to show you my practice schedule?" He reached up in the top of his hat and pulled out an index card that had like 4 lines on it. He said, "That's my practice schedule." So I thought that was pretty funny. That just goes back to the old way of, you know, doing things and whatnot. And, you know, you just, oh man, I'll sit here and think about how football has changed. You know, we had VHS tapes, and that's what we did. That's what we met. We watched those, and we had to dub them up and all that stuff like that. And, you know, it was definitely quite interesting coaching back then, you know, because, you know, technology has taken us a long way and made things a little bit easier. I have to do a little bit more work to learn how to do all that stuff, but it was definitely different back then. So.
Well, going to the clinic with Buddy was always a large time. I remember we went to Athens, and
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
We ended up at the grill like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I think it was like 2000 or 2001, 2002, and emo kids were a big deal, and we're sitting in there, and those emo kids come in, and Buddy's like, "Look at these guys." Me and you were like, "Oh my God, we're going to have to fight our way out of here."
Oh my!
Because Buddy didn't care.
No, he did not. He was like, I remember one time we went to, oh my gosh, we went to Huddle House, and let's see, John Peacock and Jimmy Williams and all of us and Joel Watson, we were all in there eating, and he'd always whistle, "Order up." So that waitress came over there and said, "If you say that one more time, we're going to throw all y'all out." And John Peacock said, "Oh, hell, I'm about to lose my meal because I just got it. He's fixing to say it again." And I'm just sitting over there just to eat. And sure enough, "Order up! Y'all got to go!" So, but, oh man, and then we would have, we went to one place, and we had Coach with us, and they didn't want to let him in. And I think there was like 60, 70 head of coaches, and they said, "By gosh, if this place ain't good enough for him, ain't good enough for us, we just get up on our and walk out." So, and yeah, I remember the good old van trip. They had some old, we had some people caught a ride with us, and they were talking some trash in there. And I think I pulled out the Roy Mercer. "By gosh, how big of a girl are you up there?" You know, so,
back when the cheerleading coaches would be at the clinic with us.
The worst thing in the world I could ever do is put them there. You know, just don't show up with no naked shoulders now. If you have naked shoulders, they won't get bit. I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to leave that right there. I'm not going to go any further with that conversation right there.
Well, going into vans, you ended up after East Lawrence. Didn't you go to Brantley County with Sean Pender and that crew down there?
Yes, I went to Brantley County. I knew nothing about Brantley County. Okay, so, you know, I knew a little bit about it. You know,
the ass-kicking ditch chickens.
Oh, my Lord. So, look here. So, Sean, I went to college with Sean, and I knew him from when he played at BSU. And he got his first head coaching job over there, and he was looking for some coaches and stuff. I was looking to get back to South Georgia, you know, and so went down there and interviewed with him, and you know, took the job down there and went to spring practice, and oh my Lord, they had like a 28 game losing streak, and they had some play. I mean, we had some decent sized kids and some different players and stuff, like some pretty good players. And I knew we were in trouble when one of our best players got kicked. He got put in off school because he decided he's going to steal somebody's wallet or something while we were at practice or during PE or something. I can't remember what it was. But he was like on a third strike type thing. So we lost him, and we lost two other guys. One guy went to Camden to go play baseball. He transferred over there because his mama moved that way. And so, you know, we're out at the first workout, and we're sitting there, and, you know, we go to workouts that morning, and so we go out to the field, and the guy that he used to be strength and conditioning coach at Georgia Southern, Bobby Steiner, he was playing there at the time, and he came up to me and said, "Coach, we got a problem." I said, "What is it, Bobby?" He said, "Contrail's stuck." I said, what is it? Got his car stuck in the mud? I mean, what? He said, "No, Coach, he's stuck in the river on a stump, and he won't get off." I said, "You're kidding me, right?" I said, "Y'all just left him out there?" He said, "Well, Coach, we had to come to practice. We didn't want to be late." I said, "You just left your guy out there?" So I got in my car, I went out there to the river, and pulled up, and sure enough, he's sitting out there on the top of a stump. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Coach, I can't swim." I said, "Well, why did you get out there?" He said, "Well, I was on a raft, and I jumped on the stump, and they left me, Coach." I said, "Okay." So I got out there in the river. I said, "Crap, I hope I don't get eaten by an alligator. My coaching career will be short-lived real quick." So I swam out there, and I got to swimming, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me." So I got up there, I said, "Contrail, I don't know if we can make it." And I stood up, and the water was waist high. I said, "Get off the stump, you big dummy." I said, "You can walk into the shore." "Oh, man, Coach, the water was dark. I couldn't see the bottom." And I was like, "Oh, my Lord." So that was definitely a chore. We were playing, I think, I'm trying to think who we were either playing Cook or Irwin.
And y'all had a staff. We had Richard Lawson, Coach Lawson.
Oh, Richard Lawson, yes.
You had Vic Parker.
Well, no, Vic didn't come until 06. We had Harville. He's over in Bainbridge with Jeff Littleton and them now. And we had Coach Goss. He was our offensive line coach. And we had Coach Walker was our running backs coach. He worked with me over here at Pierce this past year. And
was Mentier with y'all then?
No, Mentier. He didn't come in until like 05 or 06, I believe, is when he came in. But we were playing, and you know, Coach Lawson was defensive coordinator, and I coached defensive line, and so we were playing in a game, and I was up top, and he called a stunt, and young man blitzed, and it was perfect. I mean, we had it set up perfect. It would have been tackle for loss. He runs right by the kid, and Lawson called the kid over there to the sideline and said, "Son, what are you doing? Why didn't you tackle the guy?" He looked at him. He said, "Well, I blitzed, Coach. You wanted me to tackle him?" Like, the look on Richard Lawson's face was priceless. He's like, "Yeah." He said, "You know, the purpose of playing football is to tackle the other team when they have the football." So, I mean, there's a lot of times. I mean, we had to do a lot of work there. So, it was a chore. And it's good folks there, man. I enjoyed my time.
What about the kid that went to go get the ball that time, and didn't he get bid or something?
Well, we had this kid. Now believe this or not, I went through 2 tours of duty at Brantley County. So the first time I was there, I left and went to Brunswick and worked with Coach Freeman, and then I came back, which I got some great stories about Brunswick High. I came back to Brantley, and that's when Vic and them was there. And so Coach Pender would always take the offense down there, and they work 2-minute drill stuff on that end. And if you wasn't playing, you wasn't involved in the first offense, you'd come down there with us, and we'd do conditioning. And so me and Vic was down there, and we had them conditioning back and forth. And the kid comes back, and he says, Coach, I got bit by a rattlesnake. Vic said, man, there ain't no rattlesnake down there. I mean, he asked another kid, he said, did you see a rattlesnake down there? And the kid said, no, I don't see nothing, Coach. And so he takes off, and he goes back, and he comes back. And he said, Coach, I got bit again. And I looked at him, I said, Vic, that kid's been bit by a snake. I mean, that's a snake bite. So Vic goes down there and looks, and sure enough, his daggone pygmy rattler was down there. And so Vic was like, holy crap, we may need to call 911. So we called 911, and the boy's daddy was out there in the truck watching practice. He comes up there. So the ambulance shows up, and the daddy goes out there, and he gets the snake. He wrangles up the snake and whatnot. And so they put the kid in the back of the ambulance, and they did whatever they had to do. He had to go to the emergency room and stuff like that. And a couple of weeks later, we got done with the season and stuff, and the kid comes up, and not the kid, but the daddy comes up to Coach Pender, and he's got this plaque, and the snake that he had, he took it to a taxidermist and got him mounted on a plaque. And he said, Coach, if you don't mind, at the banquet, can you give this to my son, for I don't know, maybe the toughest kid, or we'll just call it the Rattlesnake Award. And so sure enough, his daddy gave him, we gave him the award at the banquet, the Rattlesnake Award. So this is also the same daddy who was out there watching practice one day. And if you've ever been to Brantley County, it's like in the middle of a swamp. There's swamp land all around it, and our football field was on what they used to call an old oxidation pond that was there behind.
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1, go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2, collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3, play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games, all for free?
Step 4, unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
A school runoff pond. They filled it up with dirt, and they built a football field there, practice fields. And so I'm sitting over there with the defensive line, and I'm working, my drills and my reads and stuff like that. And I hear this god-awful noise in the woods out there. And all of a sudden, here comes this daggone big old hog with these tuskers. And he's running across the field. I said, holy crap. Because, those things, they'll kill you. So I started running, immediately. And then all of a sudden, I looked up, and these bloodhounds come rolling by me. Well, this kid's daddy had brought his dogs to practice, and he done went back there and let them dogs out. And that it goes. They went out in the woods and the swamp area, and they chasing that dog, and he reaches in the back of his tray, takes his gun, and there he goes through the swamp out there. And I look at Mintier, and I said, you got to be kidding me. Did I just see that right there? I mean, did this guy, did a hog just come by me with some big old tuskers, and these dogs go and chase this? And then, so later on, we finished practice and everything, and we hear these gunshots back there. And the guy comes back and said, man, I got that hog. He said, y'all better get ready. Y'all going to have some good lunch on Friday. So he goes and kills a hog, and cooks the hog and brings us meat on Friday. And that's what we ate for lunch on Friday. So, people look at me when I tell these stories and they say, Coach, you're making this stuff. No, I'm not. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable. I mean,
And in between your stints at Bradley County, you went and worked for another legend, the Hammer, Coach Maurice Freeman at Brunswick High School.
Yes, I did. Now, man, I tell you what, I like Maurice. He's a good footballer. He's a great motivator. You know, he knows how to get those kids to play. He does a phenomenal job. And we always talk about fits of coaches at different places. And what Coach Freeman does at Brooks, he's a great fit at Brooks. He's from there. He grew up there. He knows everybody. He went to school there, mamas and daddies. He's starting to teach, coach second generational kids. He's got, Chris Cole's son is coming through there now and whatnot. And he came into Brunswick and, the legend Coach Willis, he'd been there forever. And so anytime you follow a guy like that, it's always kind of hard because everybody's so used to Coach Willis and what he did. And Freeman came in and I thought he did as good a job as you could do there. And to do it, because, when you take jobs, you always want to follow the guy that followed the guy. You don't want to be the guy that followed the guy, you always want to be that second coach after. You don't want to be the coach after because sometimes they don't, the percentage of being successful is kind of hard. So anyway, we had a first year there. We had this young man, we called him the monkey foot. And he was, every time he talked to you, he'd say, "Hey, Coach, how are you doing?" And he'd end every sentence with quotations. And he would just talk, and I was just like, oh, my goodness, I mean, who is this kid right here? And so one day we were taking pictures because what we did, this is back when we could still have football camp and stuff, so we stayed at the gym there. And so about on that Thursday, we'd have football pictures, and then we finish up Friday morning and have like a little inter-squad scrimmage, and then Freeman would let everybody go. And so Thursday, we were taking pictures, and so we had all the kids in the gym and stuff like that. So to kind of fast forward a little bit, our trainer, Miss Linda, she was great. She would always did stuff for the kids and everything. I mean, she was a really good trainer. And so she was out there in the field house. They just built a new field house at Brunswick High, and she was in the new field house, and she was in the training room, and Monkeyfoot comes through the locker room, and she's thinking, all right, so pictures is over. We got to start getting ready because as soon as we finish pictures, we were going to go out and practice and whatnot. And so she's getting her ice and stuff together. So Monkeyfoot come up to her and said, can I borrow your phone for a second? I said, yeah. So he started talking to whoever on the phone, and he, gave her the phone back. He says, "You wouldn't happen to have a hammer around here, would you?" She said, "Joffrey, why do you need a hammer?" He said, "I just need to use it for a minute." She said, "Yeah, we got one in the equipment room in there." So he goes and gets the camera, and so she got to thinking, why is this kid wanting a hammer? And so she says, "Why are you using that hammer?" He says, "Well, we were in there getting ready to take pictures, and Randall popped me in the back of the head, and I ain't about to be disrespected like that." And he said, "So I came out here, and I wasn't going to disrespect the Brunswick High uniform, and I took my uniform off, changed into my street clothes. I'm going to take this hammer. I'm going to go bust him in the back of the head." So Linda, one thing you didn't know about Miss Linda, she was a black belt in karate. And she hit him with the karate chop. And she started wrestling the hammer from him. And they started wrestling out there, and she hit him with the Judy chop and the Judy chop, and it just it. Oh my goodness! And then she wrestled it from him. When he takes off, she gets on the phone trying to call Coach Freeman. Then she gets. Then about that time, one of the other coaches pull up. Two of the coaches pull up because they had to go home and go get their pick stuff for pictures. And he's going across to the gym, and he stops at the portable and gets a cement brick. So now we have resulted from a hammer to a concrete brick. So
Monkeyfoot was serious about getting that lick back.
Serious was look. Monkeyfoot was going to get his back. So the basketball coach tackles him and wrestles the brick from him, gets him down, and so Coach Freeman comes out and he says, "What are you doing, Monkeyfoot?" He's like, "Coach, I called my brother Quan. He was going to come up here and take care of business, but he couldn't do it because he was babysitting. And he told me to just get a hammer or a brick and just take Randall out." And he said, "Why are you doing that?" He said, "Because he disrespected me, Coach." And oh my goodness, so Coach Freeman, he had to deal with that. He ran Monkeyfoot, made him roll, do some other stuff. And he said, "Monkeyfoot, you do that again, now you got to go to the house. You can't be, attacking other kids. I mean, these are your teammates." So we had to deal with that.
Can't be going after people with hammers and bricks.
No, so I don't know. Maybe that's what Coach Freeman got his hammer. I don't know. Maybe Monkeyfoot inspired him to use the hammer. I don't know. So, but anyway, oh my goodness, we had the first year. We had some decent kids, but in the middle school, we had some kids that were coming, and they were going to be good, because we watched them play and stuff like that. So the next year, we had a very talented freshman group come up, and so we were sitting in our football meeting, and I told him, I said, "This kid," I'm not going to name this kid because he's a pretty famous kid right now. I'm not. I don't want to throw out no hot copyrights or anything and be like an Aaron Rodgers or anything like that. But anyway, they were sitting there, and I told him, I said, "Look, this kid's going to be special." I said, he's good. He can run. He can catch. I said, "He's going to be our running back for us over with." And they said, "Nah, I mean, he's a freshman. He's not going to be able to play." I said, "I'm just telling you." So we get into about game 4. And he plays defense too. I mean, they played him at some corner and stuff. And so this kid, well, first of all, he would show up late to practice, and I'd make him roll every day. He'd come out there, and I had a rule when Coach Freeman blew that whistle, and because we go what we call pre-practice, and so I'd always take the running backs over there to the side, and we work all our drills and ball handling skills and stuff like that. And I told him, I said, "If you're not here on time, you roll." And so he would be late to practice. I make him roll from the fence where you enter the field at. He'd get there. And so I'd move. I'd go to another area. As soon as he get close to me, I'd move somewhere. So I made him roll further, and he gets so mad at me. And so anyway, we're playing in the middle of a game. And we were playing, I believe it was playing Windsor Forest, it's Beach High School. And so our running back got hurt, so we moved him to running back. And man, he had almost 180-something yards rushing.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
He returned an interception for a touchdown. He had a punt return for a touchdown. He had a kickoff for a touchdown. He's the first kid I've ever seen. We ran a toss sweep with him, and he reversed the field like 5 or 6 different times, and he scored. I was like, holy crap. So we get in the fourth quarter, and so granted, he's freshman. The only other 2 running backs I got behind him were freshmen too. And because our other 2 running backs, they were hurt. And so we go out on the field, and I got looking back there, and quarterback's got his hands up, and they want to know where the running back's at. So I get to looking. I'm like, maybe he's up here getting water. So I get to searching the sideline and get to looking and, get to seeing, where he's at. And I don't see him. I'm like, where did he go? He didn't go back to the locker room, So I look over on the sideline, and I looked underneath the bench, and I saw some feet. I said, what is that? So I went over there, and I got to pulling away we had trash bags that, like, if it started raining, we put footballs and stuff in that, pulling that stuff up. And this young man was hiding underneath the bench. I said, what are you doing, son? He's like, Coach, the moment's just too big. I don't know if I can do this. I said, son, you have scored a touchdown in every facet of the game. What do you mean it's too big for you? Coach, I just can't do it. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So, this kid, phenomenal player. It just goes to show you that freshmen, sometimes it just gets too big for them. And I was like, oh, my goodness. And so this young man today he is making a lot of money in the NFL playing. And, he came and saw me one time, and we got to talking about that story, and he got to laughing. He's like, man, I remember the times you used to make me roll every day. I was like, yeah. So, but he was definitely, man, I knew he is probably him. And I got another kid, T.Y., he plays for the 49ers. And Trey Jackson, he played for the Patriots. And Dietrich Mills, I had him over in Waycross, and he played for a short period of time in the NFL. So I've been blessed with some good players. I've been around some good players and stuff, and they, oh my goodness, every single one of them's different. Frank Stevens always used to have the great motto of, you got three different types of players. You got Lamborghinis, you got Camaros, you got pickup trucks, and you got Volkswagens. Those Lamborghinis look good, they sound good, but boy, they are high maintenance. It takes a lot to change that oil every day, So those kids, they, you got a good philosophy of you got to be fair, but you can't treat them the same because they all different, because they all grow up different. They come from different backgrounds, and they're raised differently, and so how you handle your kids is what's really, really important in coaching football. Ed Dudley said it best of anybody. He had this thing above his office. It said, Doctor of Psychology. It's psychological. Every day at football practice, got to be psychological warfare. Sometimes you got to trick kids into being great, and that's what you got to do. So
you headed back to Brantley, and Vic's there. And I remember us being at the clinic riding through downtown Atlanta in the Brantley County van, and Vic Parker about getting us killed. Too fast, too furious in downtown Atlanta, Jack.
Well, we're going out to eat, and Vic pulls up to this car, and I'm pretty sure that these young men next to us were probably involved in some extracurricular activity that
we didn't need to be involved in.
One or two words, and we could have become a statistic in Atlanta. And he looks over there and he says, well, my gosh, who are you? I'm like, Vic, we don't need to have this conversation. I mean, we need to get out of this thing unscathed. And so he gets talking to these guys, and I'm pretty sure they probably had a way to protect themselves, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. And so I said, Vic, you got, and so he's wanting to race. I said, Vic, you can't race people in this school van. It's got Brantley County on it. You're gonna get all of us fired. So, but anyway, he was that. And then, another great story, and is we were at a camp, and watching, football down VSU, and so Vic, they go. We were leaving. We were going to go over to another coach's buddy's house and hang out over there. And so Vic gets to driving the truck, and he misses where he's going. And I'm like, where is Vic and him going? So Vic goes down to the end of the cul-de-sac, and he goes down there and turns around down there. He comes back. There's like mud all over the truck and whatnot. And I said, Vic, what in the heck did you do? He said, man, I forgot there was a cul-de-sac down there, so I turn around in this guy's yard down there. He's going to be pissed at me. I messed all his landscaping stuff up. And I said, yeah. I said, I'd be a little upset too, So we go out there the next day, and we watch the practice and stuff. And Hatcher, who is at Ace now, he was out there, and he got to talking. He's like, man, he said, I hate living in, he said, I love Valdosta. He said, but he said, man, these college kids, man, they just do anything today. And so we got to talking a little bit, and, he said, man, I woke up this morning and went outside, and these daggum kids have done ran into my yard and tore every bit of my landscape. He said, I've spent thousands of dollars on my yard. And so I said Coach, where do you live at? He said, oh, I live down there in Bremerton down there. He said, you go down past Todd's house and go down to a cul-de-sac, and you go down there, and I got looking at Penner, and Penner looked at me, and I just had to walk away because I'm pretty sure that I can neither confirm nor deny that Vic Parker probably has something to do to turn around in that man's yard. So, but
awful coincidence if it was.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying I can neither confirm nor deny that story. So, but he is, it's just, oh my goodness, we had some good times. I had some good times with them. They were working with them because I went to college with Vic. And, Mentir, he's from up north, and he's, he's a park your car type guy, and he's, he's a good football coach. I always like, working with him, and he, but we always had a good time, and we went to the playoffs for the first time in history down there in 06, and you talk about this, everything's got to line up, and we had to beat Appleton County in the last game to get in, to the playoffs and stuff, and daggone, we beat them, and then we go to Jefferson County and play there. We beat them. They had some really good players.
Yeah, I went to that game.
And so, and then we go down to Great Blakely, Georgia, and play E.T., and we were beating them at halftime, and then all of a sudden he decided that he needed to start playing some football. He had like 300 yards passing and 200-something yards. Young man had like 500-something yards total offense. It was just unbelievable. I knew the game was over with when he took off down the sideline and got scrambling around. And he running to the end zone, and he dove from the 5-yard line and turned the flip into the end zone. And I was like, get the buses ready. It's time to get out of here. So, but that was pretty good there. But
well, some of our best times that we've ever had were at the clinic, and I'll never forget the time that we left out of Cowboys and got in the Camden County cheerleaders Crown Vic, and there was a collection. I mean, we always found ourselves around people that, like, the next day we'd look at each other like, how did we end up with those people?
Yeah.
And we get in the car with about 24 state championship rings. You remember that?
Oh, yeah. we get ready to leave, and some kind of way our ride had left us.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. CT&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
Yeah, that happened.
I'm like, Lamb, how are we gonna get back? And so we saw, I believe it was Pardue, one of them guys, and said, Coach, can we catch a ride with y'all? And so we got in there, and we were bodies on top of bodies in there. We was in there like a bunch of sardines, and so one of the great legends was in there, and we were driving, and one of them said, well, if they pull us over, we ain't got our seatbelt on. I said, by God, all you got to do is show them state championship rings. I think they'd all understand.
We had
just trying to get on.
We had Steve Pardue, Lee Campbell, Larry Campbell. Well, I mean, that's like, let's see, 12, 5, 2, 7, that's 19 right there. Crap. Somebody else was in there.
I'm trying to.
Might have been Raven Teague.
Raven Teague was with us too. So.
And then us two jackasses in there.
We were the odd men out. Yeah.
Well, you ain't now.
When I was walking off the field after the game, I saw Coach Pardue, and I was talking to him. And I told him, we just talked. He said, "You look kind of familiar." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I used to work with Buddy Sarla." He said, "Oh yeah." I said, "Well, I guess I can join the circle of coaches now that's won state championship." So, but it's
you spent
hanging out with those guys, man. Just like your Ed Pilchers and all them guys, man. They just sit down and talk to you about football and stuff like that. So that's what I like about those guys.
Well, they always treated us like regular guys. I remember we were down at the Bubble one time, and me and you were kind of just doing our thing, and it was late, and Coach Pilcher and them were like, Milt and them were like, hey, Chris, Kevin, y'all come over here and sit with us. And, they were, why don't y'all ever come hang out with us? And we were like, because y'all are y'all, and y'all are legends. And they're like, oh, no, we're just regular guys, man. Hang out. And they were. They treated us like regular, they just wanted people to hang out. And, we just sat until about 3 or 4 in the morning and learned that the GACA never ran out. And they just, told us stories and stuff. And we sat and listened.
Yeah, the thing about listening to those guys is they would, people go to clinics and they want to go in there and sit. And I'm not saying, going and listening to college coaches and stuff like that ain't good, because you do learn stuff. I listened to Kirby Smart talk when he first got to Georgia, and he talked about his special teams. He's like, when I got to Georgia, we were god awful in the special teams, and he talked about how he got with an analyst with the Patriots and how they improved in special teams, and I thought it was great. I mean, he was a keep it real guy, and that's the thing I like about Kirby Smart. He's going to keep it real. He's going to tell you like it is of what you need to do to win and what you're going to do to lose if you lose, and all that stuff like that. And that's great going to listen to those guys, because you do learn some stuff from them. I think the most important thing is the things that you learn after, sitting down there in the bubble or sitting down in the lobby and talking to those guys like your C. Wrights and your Milt Millers and all them guys like that, because they tell you stuff that you just don't know. I mean, as a younger coach at the time, I was younger in my career, and you just don't know, and they tell you about it. It's kind of like a fraternity of coaches, And now you got some coaches, they go to clinics, they don't even talk to you. They could care less about who you are and all that stuff like that. And, you got different branches of coaches, and I call it trees of coaches. You have your Hodges and your Milt Miller groups, and your different ones coaches up in the North Georgia area and stuff like that that have this involved in a different, I call it fraternity of coaches, and you learn from them guys. They tell you, this is what we did and all this stuff like that, and that's what I got the most, and that's what I love about going to clinics, sitting in there talking to those guys. Even today, I've been coaching for 25 years, and you're still learning. You're learning stuff new every single day about, at every clinic about how to do things and what you can do and how to become a better coach. So those are the things that I like the most, and that's what I like about the off season is you get to sit down and talk to those guys, and and they'll invite you. They'll tell you, hey, come to our school, just spend the day with us and stuff. And I've done that. When I was at Waycross, I went down and coached middle school football down there for 8 years, and I would go listen to different other people and stuff like that. And that's one thing I learned from Frank was that kind of guy. He'd always go and he'd learn something from somebody else about what to do and how to do things and stuff like that. So, and that's what I would do. I'd go and talk to different people and find out things from them and, stuff like that. So.
When you left Waycross, you went to Charlton?
Yes, I went down to the swamp down there, and my first year I was the linebackers coach, and then Coach Jones left. He went to Lowndes County to go coach, and then Coach Murray had opportunity to be the offense coordinator there. And my son, he was a freshman in high school, and we had some pretty good players. We had a large senior class, and we had Elias Williams. He's in Camden County playing football now, but had him, and he was, oh my goodness, he as a freshman. When I was at Waycross, I remember we played against him, and I saw him. I was like, man, that kid's gonna be good. He just was kind of like a giraffe at the time. He growed so much. His body was just, it was like a baby deer. He's just all over the place. And then his freshman year, he struggled a little bit catching and stuff like that. But he's still a good player. Played defense. He played outside linebacker some for us. And then the next year, he was even better, And so, I was sitting there and, we played him at tight end and stuff like that. And I was like, we was playing against Clinch. I was like, the heck with this. Kid 6'7", we're going to line him up wide. I'm going to throw the ball to him. And so, we ended up beating Clinch that year for the region championship. But he had some great catches in that game. And he is probably one of the most down-to-earth, purest kids I've coached. Just very humble kid. He could talk about how great, he's just not like that. He's just a totally different kid.
6'7" makes you a better offensive coordinator, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. Cause when we called a timeout, and he come over there, and I said, Elias, we about to run the boogity. He says, what's the boogity? I said, man, you run as fast as you can, and we're gonna throw it up, and you just go get it. And Jalen threw it up in the air, and he went and got it, and that was the difference in that game because he caught that touchdown pass, and it kind of turned the whole dynamics of that game. And we ended up winning. We drove the ball down inside the 10. We was probably down to the 20, and we've been running power all game. And we've been working on it throughout the year. And I told Jalen, I said, that end crashes. I said, you just pull it and go. And so he went to go hand it off, and thank goodness the official did. He didn't blow it dead. He pulled it. He was out the back door, and nobody knew he had the ball. He went and scored. And then we ended up stopping him on defense, but that was great there. Just, and that was the first one that Charlton won in a while. you know, and it was great. I mean, just being able to call plays and, you know, being able to get them guys and scheme up and all that stuff like that.
Well, didn't Charlton's got like weird geography? Didn't y'all have like kids coming from all over the place?
Look here, so all right, so you got different parts of Charlton County. You got a place called the Bend. It's the furthest point of the state of Georgia. Like, okay, you got the swamp. If you take the swamp away, then from Charlton to Clinch would only be 30 minutes. And you could go to Valdosta in 45 minutes, you know, easily. But you got the swamp down, you either have to go around the bottom of the swamp or the top half of the swamp. And so they got this place down there. You got Moniac and you got the Bend. Well, the Bend goes down into Florida and back up. They have no cell phone service down in the Bend. I mean, you have to go. They have what they call a sales station. I mean, it's like being in Antarctica or somewhere like that.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. CT&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
You know, you have a sales station, and you know, I've been that way. You can go that way to go to Valdosta, and I've been that way to go to Valdosta before. And the sales station they have there is probably one step away from being something like off the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. And I'm just like, I'm never stopping there. I mean, I'll just do smoke screen. We'll build a fire and send out some smoke screen. I get some help that way. And, you know, I mean, because you ain't getting in contact with nobody. You could be down there for days before anybody knows you're there. So, but those kids, we have kids. All right, so those kids.
The Witness Protection Program.
It is definitely the Witness Protection Program down there. If you want to get off the map, go to the Bend and nobody will ever find you. You know? And so you go down into past the Bend, and they're actually further to Baker County in Florida. They could go to school there. But those kids have to ride a bus to St. George. That's probably a good 20-minute ride. And once they get to St. George, it's another 30 minutes to Charlton County High School. So you got some kids that's on the bus for almost 50-something minutes. And so when I was there, I worked in the alt school, and which that was definitely an experience for me. I've never, you know, I've heard of all kind of different stuff, but I've heard we had this guy, we had this girl who had this boyfriend named Pork Chop. He called him Pork Chop. But anyway, that's a long story there. But anyway, those kids would have to ride the bus to Charlton County High School, and they'd get off there, and they wonder why those kids. I mean, if you sit me on a bus for 55 minutes, I'm as a young kid, I'm probably going to get a little crazy every once in a while too, you know. But that's a long ride. It's quite different there, but they're kind of spread out. They're a little bit kind of somewhat like Ware's the same way too. Ware is in the middle of a swamp, and so you got all the way down from Waresboro. You go all the way down to the other end to where the river is, where Pierce County's at, and you know you could have some long bus rides there, especially kids that live on the Manor side. You know, you got, and they can live deep up in the woods there. So there's definitely some long bus rides down in that area, and that's the thing about living in the South. You know, it's not like Atlanta. You can go to Atlanta, and within a 10-mile radius, you got 7, 8 high schools. Well, down here, high schools about 30 to 40 minutes away from each other. So, you know, it just all depends on where you live at.
Tell me about the time in Waycross at Ware County where you had to take the kid home. And
go ahead, I'm sorry.
And you had to, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Talking about when he took me home.
Yeah.
He told me to go home.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I had this kid. His mama was working or whatnot. And I told him, I said, look, dude, I said, I'll take you home. I said, I'm not going to sit up here for 45 minutes and wait for your mama when I can just take you home. Probably would have been better off waiting for mama to come get him, because the route he took me ended up being about a 35-minute drive. So we left the school. We went down Corridor Z. I said, you go to school here, live out here? He said, oh, no, you got to go down here and take a right. So took a right, went down there, and next thing I know, I'm over there by the hospital. I said, why are we why didn't you just tell me to go? He's like, oh, it's just, and so he said, just go on down here and go this way and this way. And so about 30 minutes later, we pulled up at his house. And I said, son, I could have just went down through the four-way, underneath the bridge, took a right, and we've been at your house in 5 minutes. Oh, well, I didn't know. I just took you. I told you to go the way the bus takes me home in the afternoon. I said, son, your mama can come get you from now on. I said, oh, my Lord.
He just knew the way the bus went.
He said, Coach, this is the way the bus takes me home. So, and another good story there is my very first year there, I worked at Waycross. We had the Mills kid, and he played at Georgia Tech, and we had Bowles, and we had another kid named Lucius. He's a big old 6'4", 6'5" kid, good looking kid. And so Coach Sharp, I love Coach Sharp. He's Shannon Sharp and him's cousin and them, and he's always got great stories to tell, about them growing up and stuff like that. And so we were playing in Franklin County, and so we got done with the game and everything, and so Everett would always drive his truck to the game with the water cow and all that stuff. And so I rode the bus, and so we had several other coaches there, and we had one coach, he would drive, and we got on the bus, and I asked one coach, I said, all right, we got all our folks? And he said, yeah, we got them all, Coach. And I was like, all right, so, we all that stuff like that. And so we got ready, we pulled off, and we get down to about Hoboken, which is halfway to Waycross, and we get this phone call from Everett. Everett said, Coach, y'all missing something? I'm like, not as I know of. I said, I got my bag and everything. He said, well, do you think we should have picked up Holloman, Bowles, Mills, and Lucius? I said, what you mean? He said, they're still here in Brantley County. I said, yeah, we can't leave the 4 best players on the team at the other opponent's house. So we had to go back and get them and turn around and get them, because they were kind of important to our football program. So that's why when I was the next year, when I coached with Coach Dudley for a little bit, and then I went down and coached middle school and did that. And my son, he was growing up. I wanted to spend a little bit more time with them, and so I was coaching down at middle school, and I always had a rule of thumb. I said, you always got to make sure you got certain players on the bus before you leave. And so when I had the Castellanos kid, I'd say, Thomas, you here? I'm here, Coach. I said, all right, let's go.
Well, when did you cross paths with the great, one of our favorite guys ever, Brian A. Watson?
Oh, my goodness. Brian Watson. By the way, Brian Watson is one of the best cooks that you've ever been around. When we was at work with him at Brunswick, we would, Coach Freeman on Sundays.
Oh, it was at Brunswick that y'all hooked up.
Yeah. So each coach would, cook, would be responsible for cooking Sunday. And we would cook food up and stuff like that. So Watson, he cooked one Sunday, and I was like, daggum, son, maybe you should have, if coaching don't work out, you can always go into culinary arts. He could cook, and so I had an opportunity to work with him there, and he oh man, you talking about, he is probably one of the funniest men alive. He's got a story for everything. He's be a good one to get on your podcast here, because he's definitely got a story, for everything.
Yeah, I love Brian. And then I remember when I can't remember where you went to interview, but when you interviewed for the DC job somewhere, and it was a good job, it was a good place, and you got the nickname from Coach Lee Hamner, Sticky Fingers Stevenson.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So I went and interviewed. I believe it was, I can't remember. It was either Tatnall or somewhere like that. I believe it was. Yeah.
And this was years ago.
Yeah. So I go and interview, and we go down. I go in there and I interview, and they offer me a job and everything. So you have to go and get all your stuff done and whatnot. And so I got a phone call, and they said, "Coach, we got a problem. We got, and this is back in the day when you had to do the roll fingerprints and all that stuff like that." And so he said, "You gotta come down here, Coach. We got a problem." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, we got your stuff has came back, and I don't know if we can hire you." I said, "What you mean you can't hire me?" He said, "Man, you're wanted in 3 states for armed robbery." I said, "What?" And I was like, "I've never robbed a bank before in my life." And I was like, so I went and down there, I talked to the guys, and they did it again, and come to find out there was another Kevin W. Stevenson that was wanted in Texas for several armed robberies. And so apparently they have gotten our names and our stuff mixed up. And because I guess when you put all your stuff in and your social security number, all that stuff like that, they put in the wrong number.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Another checkered flag for the books. Time to celebrate with Chumba. Jump in at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21 plus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
And it came up, and his numbers was close to mine. That's why I thank God for technology today. They just go in there and they do the digital stuff, and all that stuff comes up right then. But I was like, "Oh my Lord!" I said, "I'm about to never teach ever again, because I'm wanted in 3 states for armed robbery."
And Hamner, Sticky, so, what are you doing stealing people's TVs out of the house?
so then he gave me the nickname Sticky, and he even got me a shirt. There's a place in Augusta where he would say Disgusta. So we would, and he got me a shirt. He said, "I got you a shirt," and it was called Sticky Fingers. So that's what he started calling me, Sticky Fingers, right there. And I was like, "Holy crap!"
That almost cost you right there.
Yeah, there's never a dull moment whatsoever in education. I can tell you that right there. So.
And you talked earlier about how coaching, comes full circle. And, we hadn't seen each other in a while. And this past year, we hooked back up at the clinic again. And, where I'm at now, our DC's a young guy. And you decided to take it upon yourself to become his life coach.
Yes, this young man right here, he, first of all, we were sitting there talking.
He didn't realize that the clinic is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes, he tries to sprint on the first day, and you can't sprint on the first day. It's a marathon. You gotta go through, and you gotta pace yourself through, and there's a lot of stuff you got to get. You go to different meetings and stuff, and you stay up late and all that stuff like that. And so anyway, he's the first man I've ever known to spend as much money as he has on an Uber. I mean, I said, "Son, that was probably, you spend as much money on an Uber as I got my first paycheck in coaching, teaching. And I said, I'm about to officially become your life coach. So I'll call him every once in a while, and I'll tell him, I give him advice on different stuff." And
what number are we on now? Is it like 24, 25?
Oh, my Lord, yeah. there's a lot of stories, you know. And I told, me and Watson, we always sit down and we joke about this stuff. And Watson said, man, I got to get me one more credible degree so I could, start my book. And so I could probably write like 3 or 4 different books. I could probably write Life of a Coach. I could write about the survival of a coach. I could probably talk about Watch Out, because the book Watch Out would be, you better watch out because anything can happen.
Tsunami.
Tsunami. You got to watch out. So there's all kind of different stuff.
GACA.
Oh yeah, and oh my gosh, I could go into different, like dealing with parents. Oh my God, we got the only profession that I know of where on Friday night you got folks that will get up there and tell you exactly what you need to do. I mean, you don't see me down at the medical center of Central Georgia telling the heart surgeon how he needs to do bypass surgery. Well, by gosh, I think that artery needs to go over the top of the heart instead of the bottom of the heart. Or, like out behind my apartment area here, they're building another section of apartments back here. And, I'm not going to go out there and tell that guy how he needs to run his electricity out there. I'm like, hey, man, I don't think you're hooking that thing up right. A couple things could happen, and ass whip could probably be one of them. And you can't, or you don't see me going down to the local boutique down here and say, hey, I think you're not ringing that stuff up right. You need to get you an iPad, and that's how you need to ring stuff up. So there's just, oh my goodness, there's just, coaching is hard. I mean, it's hard. Like I had a girl, she came in and observed me one day, and she was talking. She said, you got any words of wisdom for you? And the girl I work with, she just looked at me. If you ever look at the meme with the dog that gives you that look, yeah, that's the look she gave me. I said, yeah, go be a nurse. And I said, no, not really. I said, look, you just got to find you a good school that fits you. And, you got to, jobs are, you got to find the right fit. Coaches go out and they go get jobs, and they win at places, and they do stuff, and they win championships and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, they get contacted by these bigger schools or other schools, and they offer money and stuff like that to come work there. And they'll go take it, and they don't win. And he just won because he had it. No, it's because he was a good fit where he was at. I tell y'all, young coaches, I tell them, when you go interview for a job, there's a whole list of stuff you better go ask. Like you talk about look under the hood, you better look under the hood. Teams that are not winning, they're not winning for a reason. It ain't because they just all of a sudden decide to get bad. There's a reason why they don't win anymore. And it's, it be a series of things. It could be change of administration. It could be schools built in your area, especially Metro Atlanta. I remember back in the day, you had Parkview was and they still have good, they're still got good teams and stuff, but they went on that long run there, and then they started building all these different schools in Gwinnett County and, different stuff like that. And I remember when Buford was just a Class A school, and, now they're in the highest classification. So, there's all kind of things that you better look at when you go take a job. And so, like somebody asked me the other day, they said, Coach, you ever want to be a head coach? I said, heck to the no. Where I'm at right now and what I'm doing, I get up, I go coach, teach elementary kids every day. I have the time of my life. I work for a good head coach. I have a time of my life working with him, and I enjoy my time with them. And, I get to coach my son. My son enjoys it here, and he has a great time here. And, you can't, the experience he had this year, I wouldn't give $1 million for it. It was one of the greatest things that he's had opportunity. And Luke Joker, he's probably one of the luckiest kids I've ever known, because less than 7 months ago, he won a state championship at baseball at Charlton County when we was down there. So he's going to get 2 rings in less than 7 months. So, but it was a great, it's a great experience, and it's, sometimes sitting in that seat and having head beside your name is not always the greatest thing. I mean, somebody comes to me, I go, you need to go talk to the head coach.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to go talk to the head coach. I can't help you with that right there.
Yeah. You're looking for that guy over there. Yeah.
You need to go talk to Coach Herod over there. He's the guy you need to go talk to.
You don't want to be that guy.
No, sometimes the old saying, you better watch out what you wish for, because what you wish for, you may not like. I mean, and I tell you right now, and this is for me from experience, like I was at Waycross Middle School, so I was an athletic director and the head football coach down there. And coaching at that school was almost like coaching at a small Class A school, because the dynamics of being an AD and handling money and doing budgeting and all that stuff like that, and raising money for your booster club and all that stuff is one thing. Then you have the football aspect of it. They want you to win. You want to teach them kids how to win. You got to run what you need to run at the high school, and you got to lift weights every day and make sure. And I don't see, when people take jobs and they say, oh, yeah, he's going to be the head coach and athletic director. As soon as they say athletic director, that's a hot no-go, because it is almost impossible to be a good, efficient head football coach and an athletic director unless you got a good assistant athletic director that can help you out, during football season. Because and football has become every sport now has become a 12-month cycle of doing stuff. Baseball, basketball. If you want to be good, you got to work year-round. If you're not working year-round, you're not going to be good. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. So, and I tell coaches all the time, when you go and interview for jobs, the first thing you better make sure you do is have a good middle school program. Because if you don't have those kids ready to play when they go to high school, and you're having to teach basic fundamental stuff, and I learned this from Frank. When Frank came in and talked to me, he said, look, they need to learn how to lift weights, block, tackle, basic fundamental stuff. And that's what I did. I go and find kids in the school that was not playing or had played, or I got them involved. And, like Thomas, I tell this story all the time. Thomas wasn't even my quarterback down there. He was a linebacker. I mean, he played linebacker. And then in 7th grade, he was my running back. He got hurt in spring. And so the guy that was going to be my quarterback didn't show up to practice one day during the summer. And I asked Thomas, I said, Thomas, can you throw the football? He's like, yeah, Coach, I can do it. So he went out and started. The rest is history. He's playing now on Saturday, and he's a very good football player. And, and he's a great kid. I mean, he bought into what we were doing down there. He lifted weights, worked hard, and whatnot. I mean, he doesn't like – he lifts better now than he did. He to start out with, he didn't like to lift weights very much, but he finally decided that if I want to be good, this is what I got to do.
Well, none of them do when they're young,
Oh,
it takes a while.
The biggest thing is, and I tell people all the time, that weight room makes or breaks your program. Even at a young age, if they're lifting weights, like I can tell you right now, we never saw a round baller going into a gym. We were going to lift weights 5 days a week, every day, and that's what we were going to do. And I get amazed. I look at on social media these different little things. This one guy posted on that says, I just don't agree with them lifting weights every single day. Well, you know what? maybe you don't agree with winning football games. How about that? Them kids got to lift weights. They got to be physically fit. I mean, if you look at us in the state championship game, our kids, we work out 6 days a week, and he gets after those kids and cramp it. I mean, we didn't have any kids that cramp at all, and they work out, and they know when they walk in that weight room, they're going to work out every single day, and it's the grind. But you got to get them to buy into that. Every school's not like that. They're going to walk. You're going to walk in there, and you're going to have kids that's going to buck the system. And sometimes you got to cut kids loose if they don't want to work. You got to get rid of them, because in the long run, if you keep them around just to win games, they're going to kill your program in the long run. Am I one of these ones just kick a kid off just because? I think football is an outlet for a lot of kids to get to another level, to be able to better themselves, whether they play football or not. At the next level, it helps them in life, because there's a lot of life lessons you learn in football. Because trust me, when you're in real life and you looking over there, and you got 8 big little eyes looking at you, expecting you to get up and go to work every day. You take that football stuff that you learn, from a physical aspect and from a spiritual aspect of, I got to trust myself, and good Lord, He's going to help provide for my family. I just got to get up. I got to go to work. I got to do the things that's necessary. That's what makes. And I've been fortunate enough. I work with kids. I work with people now that I've coached or taught in school, and they've gone on to be lawyers, doctors, police officers. They've gone on to play college football. When I was coaching basketball at Wayne County, those girls that I had, the one thing I did is I put them on a plan. I said, look, you need to make sure, whether you go play college basketball or you go find a trade school or something, you need to find something to do with your life. You don't need to just not do nothing. You need to have a plan. And so by my second year, those girls, when every one of them girls graduated, they ended up going and doing something. They either went to trade school, 2-year college, or 4-year college, and they did pretty well for themselves, So that's, the things you get out of sports and athletics it just goes above and beyond. And, you hear the old saying, football ain't for everybody. I mean, you got a school that has 1,200 kids, and you only have 80, so there's only 80 kids in the school that is able to do that, and that puts them in a fraternity amongst themselves, and that's the neat thing about coaching, watching kids grow and mature. And oh my goodness, sometimes I get embarrassed because I go down to Walmart and kid come up to me and say, hey coach, how you doing? I'm just sitting there thinking, holy crap, who's that? I mean, I remember that kid, but I can't remember their name and stuff like that. So, and I'm now starting to teach kids. So, I mean, it's starting to come around twofold now. So, and I look at them kids, I was like, I remember when your mama, your daddy was in school, they acted just like that. They'll come to me and they say, I just don't understand what's wrong with them. I'm like, the devil is a lie. You acted just like that in school. Don't you tell me that. You acted the same exact way. I said, and you did. I said, GACA. I said, you better stay on just like your mom and daddy stayed on you. So,
well, that's awesome.
It's fun to see. It's fun to see, though. I mean, it's, let's see, where was that at? I was in front of them this past week, and I was talking to a guy, and he asked me, he said, do you ever thought you would do something else? Do you ever go back and you have any regret? And I was like, I go back and I think, I'm like, yeah, I probably could have went and did something else, because I started out as a biology major and all that stuff, and, but I just never ever saw myself sitting in an office or sitting somewhere and just, the same thing from 8 to 5 every single day. And I say, I just can't. With coaching, it's a challenge. It's how can you win that next game? How can you get that next player to play at the level he needs to play at? And that's and just the relationships that you build with kids is just phenomenal. And the relationships you build with coaches and stuff like that. I mean, that's what's so great about it is, it's just at the end of the day, would I change anything? No, I would. I think everything that I did, I'd do it. If I had it to do all over again, I'd do it the same way again.
And that's awesome. You've definitely built some great relationships with kids and coaches. And I know, your friendship means the world to me. And I hope you know that. And I couldn't be happier for you than I am watching you finally getting to experience state championship this year. And I appreciate you being on. And I'd definitely like to have you on again. And I know we're going to get together at the clinic this year and celebrate again.
Yes, sir. And, I definitely, man, I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you do for football and coaches, because the information that you give and the knowledge that you get, you're even more embedded in the coaching community than what I am, because you know even more people. You've gotten involved with Florida and stuff like that, and getting to know a lot of those guys down there. I wouldn't give anything in the world for it. I've been very blessed. Good Lord's blessed me tremendously, tenfold, to be able to coach and do the things I do. And like I said, to be able to go and win one with your son is just, unless you've been there, like just talking to some coaches where their sons has played. I mean, you just don't know them until you've been there. It's just unbelievable. It's real surreal. I'll be sitting here a month from now saying, "Holy crap! Did that really happen? Did we really do that?"
Well, y'all really did it, and hopefully y'all get to do it again before he graduates.
I hope so. Hopefully he'll bless us again, and we can get back to work. We'll get back to work next week and start getting things going together and everything like that. And like I said, Coach Herring does a phenomenal job, and he's got a good staff. And I enjoy working with them guys, and he just our staff reminds me of those. Milt used to always talk about having good staffs. He has C. Wright, Dipper, and all them guys like that. And people don't believe it. Head coach is only going to be as good as his assistant coaches and what they do, and head coach being involved and doing the things that he needs to do. And that's why I enjoy it here as much as I do. And I can't be more blessed than to be in the situation that I'm in.
Well, that's awesome, Kevin. And I can't wait to see you again. I appreciate you being on, and we'll talk to you later.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate it.
All right, man.
Tyler Reddick here from 2311 Racing. Victory Lane? Yeah, it's even better with Chumba by my side. Race to ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See T&Cs. 21+. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
When you manage procurement for multiple facilities, every order matters. But when it's for a hospital system, they matter even more. Grainger gets it and knows there's no time for managing multiple suppliers and no room for shipping delays. That's why Grainger offers millions of products in fast, dependable delivery, so you can keep your facility stocked, safe, and running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.